Welcome back, folks, for a new episode of Leaked. And today we'll cover the T95/Chieftain hybrid, not to be confused with the Chieftain/T95 hybrid, the premium/special British Tier 8 medium tank that was given out for Operation Typhoon, the Clan Wars event. So not that vehicle. Well, technically it's that vehicle, but reversed. So this time around, we have the Chieftain's turret on the T95's chassis. So it's a little bit better than the T95's turret on the Chieftain's chassis. So different flipperoo, but yeah guys, so exciting. Whoopee. Take two turrets, swap it around, and you have two new tanks. Yeah, so much sarcasm, but yeah, it's not that exciting. So this is going to be a special Tier 10 British medium tank. It's not going to be a heavy, even though it has a heavy turret, so like the Chieftain, but surprisingly enough, it's a medium, whereas the Chieftain is a heavy category, whatever. So since we're in 2016 and there's a new format for leak episodes, we're going to talk about the histories of the Chieftain and the T95 project. So here we go. So basically, this vehicle is an interchangeable tank based on the T95 and the Chieftain because the Allies could have interchangeable modules in the battlefield. For example, somebody knocks out your gun or your turret and you want to swap out with a different turret on the battlefield. You don't have any other spare parts, so you switch it with a broken down other tank, and there you go, that's your hybrid tank. But the main problem with this ideology is you have to train the crews with two different types of gunnery systems. The L11A1 120mm Royal Ordnance gun is dramatically different than the 90mm T208, I believe. So the guns are different with separate propellant and charge, and the ammunitions are different. So super weird and difficult for multiple crews to understand. So the whole idea was scrapped and that was the end of the project, but you saw where this is going, right? So a lot of Allied vehicles were based off the scare from the Russians. So initially, the Conqueror was developed to fight against the IS-3, so is the Pershing, but mostly against the Tiger IIs and Yak Tigers. But yeah, then came the T-34-85s that they saw in the Korean War, so they used the Pershings and the Centurions. The Conqueror wasn't really used because it was slow. Then came the T-54s and 55s and the Vietnam War, and then they developed better guns with the birth of the L7 Royal Ordnance, and the birth of the L7 negated or just made the Conqueror just obsolete. So the Conqueror was thrown out, and then came the Chieftain project. So a lot of Allied vehicles were based off scares from the Russians, and the Russians never really showed their best vehicles. So you never saw the T-62s, T-64s, T-72s, T-80s, BMP-1s used against the Allies in like the Korean War, the Vietnam War. I think they used the T-62 in Afghanistan, but not against the Allies. It was mostly against Afghanistan. It was the Soviets against Afghanistan, and not that much U.S. involvement. But my history is dim, so not that well known. But a lot of the stuff was based off scares. Initial scares prompted each side to develop better tanks. So this is basically a joint project between the Americans and the British. Never really went super well, so whole idea was scrapped. But here is different histories for the Allies. So Americans developed the T-54 project to replace the M48 Patton. So you have the T-54, the T-54E1, and the T-54E2. The T-54, American T-54, is a conventional turret with an autoloader and 105mm that was based off the T-29 heavy tank. The T-54E1 is the oscillating turret based off the T-69 and with the 105mm autoloader. Originally it had like 10 rounds, I believe, or 8, way more than the in-game balancing 4 rounds. And the T54E2 is conventional turret with a single shot, 105mm. The whole project was not that great or vastly improved on the M48 patent, so the whole idea was scrapped. In 1955, after the joint session of question mark number 3 convention, I believe, there was a new project to develop a better tank for replacing the M48 patent. So Detroit Arsenal had the creation of the T95 project, and Ford was taking over the T96 project. The T95 project was basically a 90mm medium tank replacing the patent, whereas the T96 is a larger armament with better armor, I believe. Originally it was 4.8 inches, which is 120mm or so. So a little bit like a heavy tank, but the T96 project lost out in favor because developments of the L7 later on with different T54 exposures, and they saw the use of main battle tanks and no need for heavy tanks. So basically they canceled the T96 project, which in turn canceled the T110 series. So focusing on the T43 tank, which is the prototype to the M103. So like a jigsaw puzzle, it fits into place. So basically mostly focused on the T95 project, which was cancelled, and the only result was the turret from the T95 E7 was used for the M60's patent. Yeah, M60 patent had the modified turret. So basically, that's the history of Americans. For the British, you had the FV4201, the A45 developed. So that was the bulky Carnarvon-ish, the early armored version, less armored version of the Carnarvon. Then came the Carnarvon, which modified with the Centurion Mark III's turret and the 17-pounder. Then they saw the IS-3 and started, oh crap, we cannot handle that. So they modified a larger turret with 120mm. So that's the Conqueror, but they never used it. So the British never used the Conqueror. And then came the Hungarian Revolution, where there was a British embassy incident, which one Hungarian T-54A was driven into the embassy. It got shut down, and they took a look at the tank. They observed it and said the 17-pounder and the 20-pounder will have trouble with the T-54. So they developed a larger tank, or a larger gun actually, to combat the T-54, which is the L7, the Royal Ordnance L7A1 105mm that you see on a lot of vehicles. So that gun made the Conqueror obsolete because the Conqueror was slow and heavy. So the Centurion was one of the best medium tank, main battle tank designs of post-war Europe, if you will. So a lot of people like the Centurions, and the Conqueror went out of favor. Then came the FV4202, so they modified a tank to replace the Centurion, developed the FV4202. Didn't work out so well, but they took the designs, took the incline shape of the driver position and the sloping of the turret, and give it the modifications of the guns with 120, and that came out to be the FV4201 Chieftain. So there you go, folks. The two different histories of the T95 medium tank and the Chieftain. So this vehicle is basically a hybrid mesh of both vehicles. So never came out or never was successful. Oh well, but here are some historical pictures of the T95 projects. There were like 12 versions of the T95. Some were blueprints, some were prototypes, but mostly not developed. So this is one of the few. And here is the Chieftain. The early models without the applique armor on the turret. So not like the boxy shape. So you can tell, but they just fused the turret of the Chieftain onto the T95. And there you go, folks. Like the 59 patent, even though the 59 patent was like somewhat fictitious because nobody could prove it. So this vehicle is like that. So here are the in-game models. So as you can see, here is the T95 Chieftain, which is a hybrid of the Chieftain and the T95's chassis. Here is the Chieftain, which is very similar, Very. Other than the Hall and the other Fusion, the other hybrid. I never saw this vehicle after the first week of introduction. Nobody plays it whatsoever. It's like everybody gets a new tank, plays it for a week. Nobody plays it. I never see this tank ever again in random pub matches. Never. So that's how popular this tank is. But here is the T95 E6, the recently released Clan Wars gift reward-ish. But a lot of players choose this vehicle, play it for a week, stop playing. Here is the T95 E2, the Tier 8 premium reward for refer a friend, I believe. So yeah, nobody has it. Like one person has it, but doesn't play it. So there you go, folks. Here is the in-game models, the early models of this vehicle. As you can see, the Chieftain's turret onto a T95's chassis. Okay, there's no side skirts. Remember, the Chieftain has side skirts and 6 road wheels. This vehicle has 5 road wheels, so no side skirts. That's the main difference, you can tell. And this vehicle is slightly smaller, but you can tell from the collision models coming up. So yep, the Chieftain's super turret with the T95's hull. And surprisingly, this hull is thicker than the Chieftain's hull. So, funny enough, the Chieftain has 85mm at the front. This vehicle has 116. And it's smaller. Whoopee! Just give us the Chieftain already, or give us the Super Conqueror to replace the FV215B. Nope. Been waiting, guys. Been waiting. You switched the Centurion Action X for the FV4202, but never switched with the FV215B. Oh well. So here are the HD renders. It's the Chieftain's turret and T95's hull. So, whoop. Well, I don't know, but which hull is prettier to you? I think the Chieftain's hull is a little bit prettier, but that's personal taste. So, I like more road wheels. I like more sleekness-ish, but that's just me. Oh well. Is it a 50 cal or 30 cal on top of the turret? I think it's a 30 cal. I don't remember. But here are the collision models for both vehicles. Here is the front. As you can see, the front of the Chieftain is not as effective technically. I mean, it has a better sloping at some parts, and it could go up to 200mm, but the beak, the middle part of the armor, is only 90mm, and there's no extra armor like the T110E5 or the M103, which has extra armor at the beak, at the crevice between the upper plate and the lower plate. So the beak of this vehicle is only 90mm, and it gets penetrated by tier 8s easily. But the beak of this vehicle, the hybrid, is technically better-ish. It's rounded. It goes up to 158. So it's slightly better on the beak, but the upper plate could be better on the Chieftain, could go up to 200mm. So if you hit here, that's 200. If you hit here, that's like 110. So difference. Lower plate is flat compared to the roundedness of the Chieftain. So the lower plate is not as good, but it's a smaller target. So there is some difference. The turret is the same, super bouncy. So the weakest part is the cleft right hand side next to the cupola. So this part is slightly weaker. It's only 140mm sloped, which gives about 270-ish, 290-ish millimeter effective. So that's the weak spot, but it's still very bouncy. And high explosive anti-tank shells will have a problem. It's slope armor. So, yeah. The hull, that's the main difference, obviously. But here is the side shot of the side armor. As you can see, no side skirts for the hybrid, so no extra armor, space armor. But as you can see, the Chieftain technically has slightly better armor. So goes from 127 down to 51 rainbow, whereas for the hybrid, it's only 102, go down to 32. So slightly weaker, but the Chieftain has only 80, or no, not 80-ish, 38 behind the tracks. So it's only 38 solid behind the tracks, whereas this is a sponson jutting out from the main hull. So that's a lot different than the rainbowish on the hybrid, because it's 102 behind the tracks, then 51mm behind the tracks as well. So it goes down into the tracks, whereas this just stops above the tracks, and you have only 38 behind the tracks. So technically, I don't know which side armor is better, but both are crap, so doesn't really matter. The turret is the same, so rounded, but only bouncy at the front. So the rear is 51. Ugh. But rainbow, taste the rainbow. And here is the rear. So as you can see, the rear of the Chieftain is bigger. So it's a bigger rear. And the vehicle is a little bit taller than the hybrid. So there's no sponsons jutting out from the hull right here. But you have only-ish 19mm-ish of armor on the back. Same for both vehicles. 25mm is the same as 20-ish millimeter, so there's no armor. Surprisingly, the upper part of the engine block is thicker on the hybrid. It's 25mm on the engine block, on top of the engine block, whereas on the top of the Chieftain, it's only 19mm. So no armor for the rear, but it's a little bit fatter on the Chieftain. So here are the main stats for the hybrid. It's going to be a tier 10 special British medium tank. We'll have a crew of 4, including commander, gunner, loader, and driver, I believe. So 4 different roles, no radio operators. Has normal matchmaking, it's a tier 10. Will cost you 22,500 gold or so, but it's a tier 10, so you cannot buy it for gold. If you sell it, it's only going to be credits, which is around like 3 million credits. No, it's a special vehicle, so I'm guessing 5 million. I don't even know, but nobody ever knows. It has 1,900 hit points, which is average. Engine power is 560, which is okay, but weighs 45 tons, so it's 10 tons less than the Chieftain. Has a power to weight ratio of 12.44 because the engine is relatively weak. So 12.44, yeah, that's really bad. The average is 17 or so horsepower per ton ratio for tier 10 mediums. Top speed is 56 kilometers per hour. Reverse is 17. Hull traverse is 32 degrees per second. So like a heavy tank. Turret traverse is 31.3 degrees per second. Like a heavy tank. Terrain resistance is way below average across the board. So like a heavy tank. Ugh. View range is 400 meters, which is okay, but 5 meters below the average. Radio range is standard, above 700. Hull armor is 114.3 at the front, 50.8 at the sides, and 19 at the rear. Turret armor is 250 at the front, 140 at the sides, and 30 at the rear, but it's not really 114 millimeter at the front. It's only 114 millimeter for the drive wheel support right here. The axle to support the drive wheel. That's only 114. You saw with the collision models, it's different. It's a rainbow. So technically, it's not that. And the turret front is variable. So the best turret armor at the front is 350, but that's at the turret ring. So this turret ring, that's 350. The rest is 270-ish, 250-ish. So it's sloped. Cannot say, but okay. Has a 120 millimeter L11A1. Has 50 rounds, so 14 less rounds than the Chieftain because the size of the hull. Fires APDS, APDS-DU, and HESH. Now APDS is basically modeled after APCR, so they have the same kind of 2 degrees of normalizations, just difference in name, well, mechanically speaking. And APDS-DU is depleted uranium, but they never modeled the depleted uranium, so it doesn't give more damage, supposedly, so oh well. But penetration is 270 millimeter for the normal APDS, and 310 for the Gold Shield. HESH is always good, 140 millimeter. Alpha for the guns is 400, so above average alpha, and 515 for the Hesh, which is very good. Always loved the British Hesh because so OP. Rate of fire is below average, 6.257 rounds per minute. DPM is 2,502, so 200 less than the average. Reloads every 9.589 seconds. With the gun rammer, you could go up to or go down to 9 seconds or so. Accuracy 0.336 on average, just average equally. Aim time in 1.8 seconds. Which, wow, hey, that's pretty good. For such a large gun, that's pretty good. Gun depression is 10 degrees, and gun elevation is 20 degrees. So, yeah, it's a pretty good gun. Just fires a little bit slowly. And the tank is slow, so, But here is the final thoughts and opinions. So, it's a decent heavy tank if it has health, but it's not a heavy tank. It's a medium. So the gun handling, the penetration, the alpha, the camouflage rating, I checked, are pretty good. The weakness is the terrible mobility. Just, it's terrible mobility for a medium tank. This is the average for a heavy tank, tier 10 heavy tank. So horsepower per ton ratio, traverse speed, terrain resistance, no. No. Basically, an alternative to the unreleased FV4201 Chieftain Mark 6. So it's like playing with that vehicle, except you have worse DPM, worse accuracy, aim time, dispersion on the hull movement, health, horsepower per ton ratio, hull traverse, soft terrain resistance, and ammo count. You have better camouflage rating, top speed and reverse speed, hard and medium terrain resistance, 10 more meters of view range, frontal hull armor, supposedly, and smaller size. So, is it worth the trade-off? Not really. It's the worst horsepower per ton ratio for a tier 10 medium tank. The absolute worst. Alright? I double checked. It's the worst. It's one of the worst terrain resistance for tier 10 mediums. The dishonorable mentions are the E50M and the STB1, which came really close. So it's like some has better hard terrain resistance, some doesn't. So it's just it's up there. It's one of the worst terrain resistance for tier 10 medium. So even if it's slow, it has only average accuracy and below average DPM. So sniping is not really the best, but you have to snipe. So that sucks. It has slightly better hull armor than the actual Chieftain, and still it's not enough. So you have to utilize hull down positions and use the turret. So stop tickling my balls and just give me the Chieftain, because I would rather have the Chieftain, because the Chieftain has 500 more DPM than this vehicle. Way better accuracy by 0.03. And yeah, better aim time by 0.4 seconds. So the gun's way better on the Chieftain. This vehicle is, technically faster in top speed, but has less horsepower per ton ratio by 1.2 or so. So, yeah. It's not even really faster than the Chieftain. So basically you're trading gun characteristics, basically the DPM and the accuracy and the aim time, for slightly smaller size, and camouflage rating, and that's about it. So is it really worth it? Well, it will likely be a reward of some kind. It's a tier 10 after all, so it's likely going to be Clan Wars reward or the second season of personal missions. But if it's Clan Wars, then it has a lot of competition. So the M60 Patton, the Object 907, the T95 E6, nobody actually gets it or wants to get it. Nobody plays it after a while. And the unreleased, the M48A2 Custom, which is the M48A2 /T54E2 /T123E6, the custom hybrid, or the 121B, the Chinese with the L7, I believe. So the 121 with the L7. But a lot of competitions. And I didn't even mention the heavy tanks and tank destroyer options, which is the VK7201K, the Object 777 version number 2, the Object 257, which I recently covered, and the Object 268 variant number 5. So a lot of premium or special tier 10 vehicles that aren't released to the public yet. So surprising, right? But this vehicle is in a lot of competition, so it's up to you to decide, but you already know all the stats. So basically, here is the comparison. The T95/Chieftain is slightly prettier than the Chieftain/T95. So technically, based on my opinions, but it's a crapshoot. So not really worth it. Is it really worth it? Just give us the Chieftain. Stop tickling my balls. Give us the Chieftain, or give us the Super Conqueror. So it's not as exciting as these two vehicles right here. So on the left, here is the British Crumez 75 test vehicle. It's basically a, I believe, Cromwell with an unmanned turret. So it has a 17-pounder. Sam, that's not a 17-pounder. That's a 20-pounder. You can read. It's a 20-pounder, unmanned 20-pounder on a Cromwell. There you go. Can't even talk. And then there is the Super Conqueror with applicant armor on the upper plate and the turret. So list these Super Conqueror right here. So these two vehicles are actually technically better than hybrids, because hybrid vehicles are just taking turrets and swapping them. So I would like to see a unmanned, Cromwell with a 20-pounder gun. That would be pretty cool. Wait, 83.8 millimeter. Yeah, that's a 20-pounder. The 17-pounder is around 76 millimeter, I believe. Okay, that's the 20-pounder, Sam. That's the 20-pounder. Got it. So yeah, there you go, folks. Not as exciting as these two vehicles, but we're going to have it anyways. So as for my opinions about the current events on the British separation of EU from the EU is they took our germs. That's what a lot of the covering on this subject is a bunch of British are pissed off that migrants are getting all the jobs, and pissed off at EU for doing this stuff, I guess. I don't know politics, but from the basic broad picture, it's goddamn goobacks. They took our germs. So I don't know what's going on in British or Britain, but their stuff is their politics. We have our own crap to deal with, namely Trump and Hillary. So giant douche and a turd sandwich. I might move to Canada in like a few months. Oh god, it's just yeah, one douche, one turd. Choose between each. Ugh. But there you go, folks. The T95/Chieftain hybrid. We did not ask for it. We did not want it. We did not deserve it. So there you go, folks. You could have it, but it's me. Just give us the Chieftain, or give us the Super Conqueror. Stop tickling my balls. That should be my title. But there you go, folks. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Pretend that